It's Wednesday and you know what that means. It's time for a brand new episode and my road trip vlog to Cardiff to see AEW Dynamite and Collision for the very first time here in the UK. Come and join me on a retro road trip as we head around the UK, check out some of the best charity shops, pawn shops, CEX stores and independent game stores that the UK has to offer on this, the Retro Road Trip. Hello again folks and welcome back to a very special video. That's because today we are doing things a little bit differently. Recently me and my brother went on a truly epic road trip to Cardiff, Wales for AEW Dynamite and Collision live. But that's not all. We also did loads of game hunting, sightseeing and so much more. And best of all, I'm taking you folks along for the ride today in this vlog style video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5 as well as bonus content throughout the week and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's hit the road. We started our road trip about 9 AM from the fine city of Norwich. We knew it was going to take about 6 hours till we hit Cardiff and it was a very long road and to be honest, a very picturesque road. And at the end of that road was our first stop, this time Smith's Toys. And we were stopping here for a very specific reason. My brother was looking for a very specific pop vinyl and according to the Smith's Toys website, this was the only store in the whole of the UK which had this pop in stock, but we just could not find it. You can see here we were met with an absolute wall of Funko Pops. It was one pop, like finding a needle in a haystack, and unfortunately we just couldn't find it, but we did find some absolutely incredible stuff in here. You know me, I love Smith's Toys. There's so many cool toys in here, especially these wrestling figures and especially this absolutely amazing Ultimate Roman Reigns. We did think we had a chance to find the final Funko Pop, but unfortunately it was actually that Healy dirty Dom Mysterio. We had a quick scout of the gaming section and it goes to show there are so many incredible games still to come out over the course of 2024. But comment down below, what is your most anticipated game of the year? And also, have you pre-ordered it? Our next plan for this first day in Cardiff was to hit up the 2 CEX stores around the city. Now, yes, we could have driven there. It would have probably been hard to park, so we decided we'd been sat in the car already today for 6 hours. Let's just walk there. It was a fairly long walk, but it was a very, very peaceful, picturesque walk, and it was easy to forget that we were in the middle of a capital city. It was absolutely beautiful walking through the park, over the river, and a really nice change after sitting in the car for the past 6 hours. An absolutely beautiful sunny day and a really nice way to reflect on the beauty of Cardiff. After an hour's walk, we found ourselves at the first CEX store of the day, but you'll have to wait for a future episode of the crazy world of CEX to check that store out. Next up, we were off to one of the massive, and I do mean absolutely ginormous shopping centres in the centre of Cardiff. This place was absolutely vast. And of course, I'm sure you can guess why we're at this shopping centre. It was, of course, the location of the second CEX store, which again, you'll have to stay tuned for a future episode to check out. After a short walk past the absolutely breathtaking castle here in the centre of Cardiff, don't worry, we'll see more of this later on, we found ourselves at our luxury accommodation for the night. At the end of the day, I was literally going back here to sleep and shower, that was it. So it was basic, it was cheap, it was everything we needed. We had one last order of business before the night's entertainment could begin, and that was touring an absolutely incredible games room here in Cardiff. Again, you will have to stay tuned for a future episode for the full tour of this games room. It absolutely blew me away, and if you're a game collector or a fan of seeing behind the scenes of some of these amazing games rooms, trust me, this episode will blow you away. After staying way too late talking about gaming, it was finally time to check out the nightlife here in Cardiff. But first off, we really needed to eat. It was around 9 o'clock and there was only one place which we knew we could get food fast and cheap. And that is, of course, the classic Wetherspoons here with a pint. And then a few more pints because it had been a very, very busy day. And why not? We'll just have a few more pints. And you know what happens when you have a few more pints? They normally turn into a couple more. But we did also check out an absolutely incredible local Welsh cider. This cider was super strong, so we only had a half. But yeah, it was really, really nice. As you can see, I really enjoyed it. After refueling and rehydrating, it was time to hit up some nightlife here in Cardiff. And a short trip down Chippy Lane, we found ourselves on the main strip. And gotta admit, we were very tempted to hit this place up right here, Coyote Ugly. I wasn't really feeling dancing on the bar tonight though, so we decided instead to hit up NQ64, an absolutely incredible arcade bar which has locations all around the UK. And if you are a gamer, this is pretty much the best night out you will ever have. It is essentially a nightclub for gaming. They have arcade machines, consoles, absolutely everything. This place was absolutely incredible. The gaming theme even stretches to the drinks on offer here. NQ64 has an amazing selection of video game based cocktails, but some of these can be absolutely lethal. So me and my brother went for a nice gentle pint of 4-bit Pilsner, which again was so crisp and absolutely delicious. After further rehydration, it was time to game, and I had to start off on this machine right here, Terminator 2 Judgment Day. That's because back in the day, this was the very first light gun game I ever played in the arcades, and quite possibly the reason to this day that I still love light gun games, and honestly, even now, this game is incredible. We carried on the light gun theme with undoubtedly two of the greatest light gun games of all time. First off, we had a few rounds on House of the Dead 2. And of course, when we're talking about light gun games, we have to talk about Point Blank 2. NQ64 had an absolutely incredible selection of light gun games, but that wasn't all. They also had this machine right here, the Mario Kart Arcade GP. Now, I've only played this once or twice before, but honestly, this could be the greatest way to play Mario Kart ever. I think you can hook up 4 of these machines. There was only 2 here in NQ64 and it was still a massive machine. I am a little bit salty because I did come in second to my brother, but this machine was amazing. But it's not just arcade machines in NQ64. They also have a massive selection of consoles all set up ready to go so you can game all night. I think it was open till about 2 or 3 in the morning and it was pretty late when we left, mainly due to this OG Xbox right here which had been modded, and we ended up playing the greatest racing game of all time, bar maybe one game, Burnout 3. We were playing late into the night and it was worth it. We had had an absolute blast here on our first day in Cardiff, but it was very, very late and we had a lot to do in the morning. So after, of course, one more nightcap, it was time to head back to our luxury accommodation. And Cardiff really is a beautiful city which comes alive at night. You can see we were staying here right on the riverside, and in the distance there you can see the Principality Stadium. It had been an absolutely amazing first day here in Cardiff, but now it was time for sleep. The next morning we were up bright and early and ready to explore Cardiff. This was the only full day we had in Cardiff and I wanted to make the most of our trip. So after refueling with the Breakfast of Champions, it was time to explore the sights and sounds of Cardiff. And what better place to start than the castle? It really doesn't put into scale in this video how big this castle is. It really is breathtaking. We did only have a look around the ground shortly. I'm sure there's lots more to see and do, but like I said, this was a fleeting visit and we had a lot of shops to visit before tonight. And our first stop was one of the best places for anything geeky or nerdy, Forbidden Planet. I've visited stores in London and Cambridge before, so I knew pretty much what to expect. But this was a nice surprise. AEW figures, a Specialist Soraya one right here. This is one I definitely need in my collection. Got to support the local hometown heroes. Yeah, definitely need to pick this one up very soon. Forbidden Planet also had an amazing selection of TMNT figures, including these Mutant Mayhem figures for both the movie and the brand new series on Paramount Plus, which I've just started watching, and honestly, if you're a TMNT fan, you definitely need to check out that new series on Paramount Plus. There was also some more premium TMNT figures like these ones right here, and these were super cool, as if you collect all 4 of the brothers, they connect to make an amazing diorama. Definitely something I need to make some space for. Next up, we had to hit up some charity shops. You know me, wherever I go, I'm going to be hitting up charity shops, looking for games, retro, anything cool for the collection. And straight away in this first charity shop, we were finding some pretty decent games. Nothing I needed straight away, but there was a really good selection here. They were just a little bit too highly priced to flip into CX, but honestly, a really good selection of games. And for the first shop we started in, it's always good to see games straight away. Sometimes you can have a bit of a dry spot, but here in Cardiff today, we were straight away on the hunt and finding some cool stuff. This one made me laugh. I think I remember this PC game from back in the day. US Most Wanted. I'm sure the final boss in this game was Osama bin Laden. I could be wrong. It was kind of tempting to pick this one up for nostalgia's sake, but it's one of those kind of weird sealed PC games that barely holds any value, but again, a real zeitgeist of a strange time. On to the next charity shop, and the first thing that caught my eye on the shelf here was this PlayStation 2 demo disc. I really need to write down which demo discs I have in my collection. It's kind of hard to track these rather than the good old-fashioned way of writing them down, so I did leave that one behind, so I wasn't sure if I had it. This was quite tempting. Any kind of PlayStation 4 game I can get for a couple of quid, I'm always tempted to pick it up, but I did pass on that one. Again, much like this one, not quite enough to trade into CX, so I did pass, but it's good to see PlayStation 4 games becoming more readily available in charity shops, and hopefully we see even more PS4 games in charity shops in the years to come. Next charity shop, and moving from the PlayStation 4 back to the PlayStation 2. Some quite random games here, and a game I don't think I've ever seen before. It just goes to show there is so much shovelware on the PlayStation 2. I'm still finding games which I've never heard of ever before all these years later. This was quite cool to see, but a little bit disappointing. PlayStation 1 games, but unfortunately didn't have the manuals or the front artwork, so I did pass, which is a shame, as Warzone 2100 is actually a really sound strategy game. If you've kind of burnt yourself out on Command and Conquer on PlayStation 1, if you're a strategy fan, definitely check it out. Heading to the CD section, it was good to see some local artists represented here with Funeral for a Friend. It seemed going through this CD section, somebody had traded in their entire kind of alternative collection from about the mid-2000s, which to me was a golden age of music. So I picked up a few CDs from here. I'm always looking to build my CD collection, and honestly, if nothing else, it would give me something to listen to on the long drive back from Cardiff to the fine city of Norwich. Some absolute bangers in here. Really cool to see some decent alternative CDs in the charity shop, even though one of these I think they probably should take off the shelves. If you know, you know. But yeah, there was some dodgy CDs in here, but I was very happy to pick up a couple of Funeral for a Friend CDs while I was right here in their home ground. On to the next charity shop and back to the games with this game for the PlayStation 4, Battlefield 1. Absolutely underappreciated classic, and this was quite interesting. FIFA 2003, the mobile version. No idea how this worked, if it was a code or what. It did have a disc in there. No idea about this one. Very confusing. Did leave it behind, but let me know, would you have picked up that weird FIFA oddity? Whenever I see a cash generator store on the high street, I will always check it out, as you never know what bargains can be had in here. But unfortunately, this time it did appear that their best stock was in the windows. But they did have a pretty interesting deal in store. 6 games for £10. Now, these were mainly common titles, but honestly, if you are looking to build a collection and there's 6 games which you need here, this is a really good deal. I did scour through all of these games in case there was any hidden gems, but unfortunately they were all kind of low to mid-tier titles. Nothing I needed for the collection, so I did pass this time, but a great deal for the right person. This was a store I was super excited to visit, Super Tomato, as this store came highly recommended by multiple people. Now, I'm only going to do a little bit of a sneak peek here. You'll have to stay tuned for a future episode of the Platinum Project PlayStation 2, where I'm going to deep dive into this store a little bit more, but I was in my element. This store was absolutely incredible. It wasn't just an amazing selection of retro games, and yes, it was an absolutely incredible selection of retro games. They also had an amazing selection of retro toys, and this right here, this Super Nintendo kiosk, is without a shadow of a doubt one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my entire life. Then we were on to our final stop of the day, Galactic Attic. And again, this was a place that came highly recommended. I can see why. They once again had an absolutely incredible selection of retro toys. And I did manage to find some hidden games in here, some cassette-based games, some really nice titles in here. I was a little overwhelmed by this time. It had been a very long day of hunting and we had seen some super cool stuff. But there were some really nice games in here, but I did pass them this time because honestly, my wife is best at finding these games. This was incredibly tempting, but unfortunately it was missing a signed postcard. So I did pass, but I will find this one day. I had to revisit this amazing mural, which I first visited in 2022 to commemorate Clash at the Castle right here in Cardiff. Then once again, it was time to refuel with, somewhat ironically, the same meal I'd had the night before, but this time I was pairing it with a couple of pints of the black, and after a few more creamy Guinnesses, it was time to get ready for a night of wrestling action. And what an amazing way to start our evening. SmackDown live in Wetherspoons. I've never seen it before, but I will acknowledge it. And then it was time for the main event. It's Wednesday and you know what that means. It's time for AEW Dynamite. And I've been waiting since 2019 to see AEW Dynamite live. It is the wrestling show that got me through lockdown, and this was the perfect venue for this wrestling. 5,000 rabid wrestling fans were ready for the UK debut of AEW Dynamite. And even better, my mega pint was in hand and I was ready for the show. This was quite funny, these code of conducts before the show started. Let's just say there was definitely some foul and abusive language used towards some of the wrestlers. Not just me, I would say all of the fans in attendance definitely made their voices heard. Now, I haven't got much footage throughout the show as of course I wanted to live in the moment and enjoy for the very first time seeing AEW Dynamite live. And I cannot put into words the atmosphere in that room that night. It was absolutely insane. I have been to wrestling events for the past few years and nothing came close to this. And the fact we were so close to the action, having 5,000 people screaming Will Ospreay's name, singing along to Elevated, is one of the most aura moments I've ever had at any wrestling event. This was just days before AEW All In live at Wembley, and I also went to that show, but seriously, this one just hit differently. It was absolutely incredible and was without a shadow of a doubt the greatest wrestling event I've ever been to. All that remained that night was to acknowledge my tribal chief once more, and then it was time to head back one more time to our luxury accommodation and to try and get our head around what had been one of the most amazing nights of wrestling I've ever been to. I haven't been able to record this video till about 2 weeks later because my voice has only just recovered. That was without a shadow of a doubt one of my favourite road trips of all time. It just had it all. It had game hunting, amazing independent game stores, CEX stores. We visited arcades. We went to one of the greatest wrestling shows of all time. And all of this was over the course of just 3 days. This truly was a road trip for the ages. And sadly, after a 6-hour drive, it was coming to an end. We crossed the bridge back into sunny England. Let's go back to the games room. Here we are then back in the games room after a truly epic road trip. It honestly was a once in a lifetime trip and I loved every minute of it. And of course, I had to pick up some mementos while I was at AEW Dynamite to commemorate the occasion. And first off, we have something which I've been trying to get hold of for absolutely ages. This acclaimed foam hand. I missed out on these on AEW All In last year, so when I saw them for sale at Dynamite, I knew I had to pick it up. Yes, it's incredibly cheesy, but it's an amazing memento of an amazing night. The other souvenir I picked up from AEW Dynamite Collision is this absolutely incredible AEW turnbuckle pad, and this was surprisingly affordable at just £20. If you're not a wrestling fan, this is what they put on the side of the rings to protect the wrestlers' heads from the ring post. This is super cool, and for 20 quid I thought this was really surprisingly cheap. They were selling these signed at AEW All In, but they were much more expensive, and honestly, in the future I'm hoping to meet a few wrestlers and add some signatures to this pad. There we have it then, folks. That was a truly once-in-a-lifetime road trip, and I hope you enjoyed the ride. Let me know in the comments down below if you enjoyed this vlog-style video, and who knows, maybe there'll be more coming up in the future. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon!